The Vexian fleet called their invasion Wet Feet, a comic misdirection meant to conceal their arrogance. They believed Earth's oceans would be an easy foothold, that humans knew nothing about their own depths. But within days, their reconnaissance teams vanished without trace. Then came the warning. Earth's waters are protected. Leave immediately or face consequences. This is how humanity's silent hunters turned an alien invasion into their greatest tactical victory. Fleet Commander Zorax chose the name Wet Feet with dry amusement, a private joke about what he considered a trivial operation. His command staff shared the view that Earth's oceans represented undefended territory, a backdoor left open by a species too preoccupied with surface conflicts. They saw the deep sea as a vacuum of awareness, a perfect insertion point. Science Officer Prell presented the tactical assessment with clinical certainty. His scans indicated minimal human presence below 2,000 meters, with no organized patrol patterns or fixed installations. He concluded humans remained largely ignorant of their own deep-sea environments, treating the abyssal plains and trenches as empty wastelands. The data appeared comprehensive, the projections flawless. Veteran warrior Krill observed the briefing with silent unease. His interface scrolled through the invasion plans, noting the absence of contingency protocols for organized resistance. He'd seen overconfidence cripple better fleets. When he questioned the lack of fallback positions, Command dismissed his concerns as excessive caution against a primitive species. The Vexians deployed their aquatic reconnaissance units within hours of orbital insertion. These advanced probes descended toward the midnight zones, mapping thermal vents and geological formations with efficient precision. Each unit carried stealth systems that rendered them virtually invisible to conventional detection methods. They moved like shadows through the crushing darkness. Primary reconnaissance focused on the Mariana Trench, selected for its extreme depth and isolation from surface activity. Initial surveys showed ideal conditions for establishing their first underwater base, with stable geology and abundant thermal energy sources. Construction modules were prepared for rapid deployment once the area was secured. Zorax addressed his command team with characteristic swagger. He framed the operation as strategic cowardice, outmaneuvering a stronger opponent through clever positioning rather than direct confrontation. His confidence stemmed from absolute faith in their technological edge, believing human vessels would detect nothing until their base was fully operational and impregnable. Their entire strategy hinged on stealth and system superiority. Vexian vessels employed advanced dampening fields that neutralized acoustic signatures and absorbed active sonar pulses. Their material science allowed construction at pressures that would crush conventional alloys. They operated on the assumption that human sensor technology remained decades behind their capabilities. This operational mindset reflected deeper cultural patterns that prized cunning over brute force. Vexian military doctrine emphasized winning through misdirection and psychological advantage rather than attrition. Underestimating opponents had become standard procedure, reinforced by centuries of successful campaigns against less advanced species. The stage was now set. Reconnaissance teams moved into position, their stealth systems active, their sensors scanning the eternal dark. Command waited for the first confirmation signals that would greenlight the establishment of their beachhead. They anticipated no meaningful resistance, only the quiet compliance of an environment they considered empty and passive. Zorax monitored the operation from orbit, already composing his victory report to high command. He imagined the humans would never know what happened until their oceans were already under foreign control. The operation proceeded with clockwork precision, every system performing within expected parameters. Nothing in their projection suggested anything but complete success. Reconnaissance Team Alpha entered the Arctic waters with all systems reporting optimal function. Their stealth fields engaged, their sensors scanning the frigid darkness with perfect clarity. Then their status indicator shifted from active monitoring to complete signal loss. No distress call, no system failure warning, just a sudden cessation of all telemetry. Command logged it as a probable technical malfunction, a minor setback in harsh environmental conditions. Team Beta deployed into the North Atlantic 12 hours later, their mission parameters identical to Alpha's. They descended along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, mapping potential base locations with methodical precision. Their last transmission showed normal operations at 900 meters depth. Then their signal vanished with the same abrupt finality as Alpha's. No debris field, no energy surge, no indication of catastrophic failure. Just silence where there should have been data streams. Team Gamma entered the Pacific sector with enhanced monitoring protocols. Command ordered continuous microburst transmissions instead of steady streams, hoping to catch any anomalies. Their final burst came from the Peru-Chile Trench, showing nominal readings across all systems. The next scheduled transmission never arrived. 3 teams lost across 3 separate ocean basins, all following the same pattern of sudden, complete disappearance. The statistical probability of 3 independent technical failures across different ocean systems approached 0. Command began reviewing the disappearance vectors, noting the precise timing and identical circumstances. Each team vanished during active scanning operations, suggesting their sensor emissions might have betrayed their positions. The pattern indicated targeted elimination, rather than random equipment failure or environmental hazards. Vexian Command initiated emergency review protocols, questioning Prell's original intelligence assessment. Their initial confidence in human technological inferiority began to fracture under mounting evidence. Officers reviewed sensor logs for any trace of external contact, finding only brief anomalous readings that defied classification. The lack of obvious weapon signatures or energy spikes suggested either extremely advanced technology or tactics beyond their understanding. The disappearance rate shattered all projected loss models. Their probability matrices had allowed for a 5% attrition rate from environmental factors over the entire operation. Instead, they'd lost 100% of deployed units within the first 48 hours. Command interfaces flashed with statistical anomalies that their systems couldn't resolve. The numbers told a story their cultural arrogance refused to accept. Something in Earth's oceans was hunting their recon units with terrifying efficiency. The complete absence of debris or energy signatures pointed to precision engagements that disabled systems without destructive overkill. Each team vanished too quickly to trigger emergency protocols or transmit warnings. Whatever was hunting them understood Vexian technology well enough to exploit its vulnerabilities perfectly. The quiet professionalism of these eliminations hinted at opposition far beyond primitive sea creatures or random accidents. The precision and coordination across global distances suggested organized military response rather than isolated incidents. Command began considering the possibility that human naval forces operated with capabilities their intelligence had completely missed. Their assumption of oceanic vulnerability started to look like a catastrophic miscalculation. Warrior Krill reviewed the disappearance patterns with grim recognition. He'd seen this signature before during the Karzan campaign, where stealth predators eliminated scout teams with similar efficiency. He noted how each team vanished during active scanning, suggesting their own sensors had made them visible to hunters who preferred darkness. His warning about contingency planning now carried uncomfortable weight in the command chamber. The Vexian fleet remained in orbit, their underwater operations completely compromised without understanding how or why. Command delayed all further deployments while analysts scrambled to reassess the tactical situation. Their invasion timetable began to unravel as they faced an invisible, implacable enemy in an environment they thought they controlled. The ocean's darkness no longer felt like cover. It felt like a hunting ground where they were the prey. A direct transmission pierced Vexian communications channels with surgical precision. The signal bypassed their encryption protocols and appeared simultaneously on every command terminal. It carried the clean, uncompromising tone of professional military communication, delivered in flawless Vexian standard dialect with perfect grammatical construction. The message opened with formal address protocols, identifying the recipients as unidentified extraterrestrial vessels, operating without authorization in Earth's territorial waters. It stated that their reconnaissance devices had been located, tracked, and neutralized across 3 ocean basins. Each loss was cataloged with precise coordinates and timestamps that matched the disappearance events exactly. Human command demanded immediate departure from Earth's oceans and surrounding space. The warning stated that continued unauthorized presence would trigger defensive measures without further communication. The consequences clause specified proportional response protocols that mirrored standard interstellar engagement rules, suggesting familiarity with galactic conflict conventions. The transmission's tone shifted dramatically within seconds of delivery. Initial phrases carried almost scientific curiosity about the Vexian technology and deployment patterns. Then the language hardened into cold operational resolve as it transitioned to the warning portion. The shift revealed humans had completed their analysis and reached definitive conclusions about Vexian intentions. Earth declared its oceanic territory as protected space under planetary sovereignty protocols. The declaration referenced historical precedents and legal frameworks that the Vexians recognized as valid interstellar law. This wasn't primitive territorialism, it was sophisticated spacefaring jurisprudence delivered by someone who understood galactic norms. The message revealed human awareness capabilities far beyond Vexian intelligence estimates. They knew exact fleet positions, vessel classifications, and even individual command structures. Their sensor penetration suggested technology either equal to or superior to Vexian systems. The intelligence failure became apparent in every precise detail the humans recited. Human command made clear that stealth attacks would meet determined counter-response. They referenced specific Vexian tactical doctrines by their proper names, demonstrating deep study of their opponent's methods. The warning indicated they'd prepared for this exact scenario and had response protocols ready for execution. For the first time, Zorax felt the foundation of his certainty crack. He watched the message replay on his command display, noting how each word undermined their operational assumptions. The humans weren't just aware, they were waiting. Their professionalism suggested they'd dealt with similar incursions before, treating this as routine border security rather than first contact. The transmission ended with a final warning that all subsequent unauthorized activity would be treated as hostile action. The channel remained open for exactly 30 seconds after the message concluded, then severed with clean precision. No trace of the signal origin remained in the Vexian systems, just the echoing certainty that they'd been completely observed from the moment they entered the system. Command staff reviewed the message in stunned silence. Prell's intelligence assessment now looked dangerously incomplete. The humans had technological awareness, legal sophistication, and military readiness that contradicted every pre-invasion briefing. Their ability to penetrate Vexian systems suggested either superior technology or terrifyingly effective reverse engineering capabilities. Zorax ordered full sensor sweeps of surrounding space, suddenly aware they might be the ones being watched. The comfortable arrogance of wet feet evaporated in the face of professional, capable opposition. His command interface showed the operation timeline crumbling as new threat assessments flooded the system. The easy victory he'd promised now looked like potential disaster. The warning hung in the air like a charged weapon. Every officer understood the implications. They'd lost tactical surprise, technological advantage, and strategic initiative within moments of that transmission. Human command had drawn a line in the ocean floor and dared them to cross it. The silent hunters had finally spoken, and their message was unmistakable. Captain Eleanor Jackson monitored the unusual sonar readings near the Mariana Trench with professional detachment. Her eyes tracked the anomaly as it moved along the trench's eastern wall, maintaining depth consistency that defied natural ocean currents. The contact pulsed with a rhythmic precision that suggested artificial propulsion rather than biological movement. Jackson's fingers rested lightly on the console, her posture relaxed but her focus absolute. Executive Officer Maria Torres identified the signature as non-standard within seconds of its appearance. Her analysis interface cross-referenced the acoustic profile against known submarine classes, marine life catalogs, and geological phenomena. The system returned 0 matches across all databases. Torres noted the signal's complex harmonic structure, something that didn't occur in nature and didn't match any human engineering patterns she recognized. Her report highlighted the signature's artificial but unfamiliar characteristics. The contact's size parameters eliminated biological explanations immediately. It registered too large for any whale species, and moved with directional purpose that ruled out whale behavior. Its acoustic signature showed none of the random variations typical of living creatures. Yet it also lacked the clean engineering signature of another submarine, showing irregular emissions that suggested either damaged systems or completely alien technology. The anomaly occupied that unsettling space between known categories. They concluded they were watching something alien lurking at the trench's edge. The positioning suggested either reconnaissance or ambush preparation, hovering where the continental shelf dropped into abyssal depths. Jackson noted how it maintained position exactly where thermal vents created acoustic interference, using natural cover effectively. Its behavior indicated tactical awareness of the environment and possibly awareness of human detection capabilities. The pieces formed a picture they'd trained for but never expected to encounter. The Barracuda's crew went to battle stations with quiet efficiency. There were no alarms, no shouted commands, just the smooth transition from routine patrol to combat readiness. Each sailor moved to their position with practiced precision, systems coming online in sequence rather than simultaneously to minimize acoustic signature. The submarine's atmosphere shifted from relaxed vigilance to focused intensity. Without any visible change in discipline, they drilled this scenario countless times. Their training focused specifically on silent pursuit and identification protocols. Every crew member understood the priority was information gathering rather than engagement. Sensors reconfigured to passive listening modes, collecting data without emitting energy that might reveal their position. Weapon systems remained in standby, awaiting positive identification and command authorization. The crew operated with the patience of hunters who understood the value of perfect timing. Jackson recognized the potential for a systemic ambush situation. The alien vessel's position allowed multiple escape routes into deeper water, while limiting approach vectors for pursuers. She noted how it positioned itself where underwater topography would mask its retreat if discovered. This wasn't random positioning. It showed tactical understanding of undersea warfare principles. The realization suggested either prior observation of human operations or universal tactical principles that transcended species. She ordered evasive patterns while maintaining observation distance. The Barracuda began a slow, spiraling descent that kept the contact on sensors while presenting a difficult target profile. Their movement patterns mimicked natural ocean currents and thermal layers, blending into the environment rather than fighting against it. Jackson's commands emphasized patience over aggression, data collection over confrontation. She understood they were potentially outmatched technologically and needed every advantage their environment could provide. Their discipline showed years of anti-detection training in action. The crew managed systems with minimal communication, using hand signals and prearranged protocols to maintain silence. Power consumption shifted to prioritize sensor arrays and life support over non-essential systems. Even breathing patterns changed as crew members unconsciously minimized their oxygen consumption to reduce air recycling noise. They became part of the ocean's background, invisible but acutely aware. The hunters had become the hunted in their own element. Jackson watched the alien signature on her display, recognizing the reversal of roles with cold clarity. Their submarine had entered these waters as the dominant predator, the silent hunter that ruled the depths. Now they faced something that understood darkness and pressure and silence as well as they did. Something that might have better technology and unknown capabilities. The ocean suddenly felt much larger and much more dangerous than it had an hour earlier. The Vexor fleet deployed their decoy base with meticulous precision, positioning it along the thermal vent fields where water turbulence would mask its artificial nature. The structure emitted a carefully engineered signature designed to attract human curiosity. Low-frequency pulses that mimicked distress signals mixed with energy readings suggesting advanced technology. Their science teams had analyzed human response patterns to underwater anomalies and calibrated the lure accordingly. They believed they'd created the perfect bait for a technologically curious species. Vexian Command boasted about the decoy's effectiveness as activation reports streamed in. Their interface displays showed the signature emitting exactly as specified, with harmonic frequencies calculated to trigger human investigation protocols. Officers pointed to the signal's complexity as proof of their psychological profiling accuracy. They'd studied how human naval forces responded to mysterious contacts and built their trap around those predictable behaviors. Confidence ran high that the primitive species would take the bait without suspicion. 3 human submarines responded to the decoy signature almost immediately, their approach vectors appearing on Vexian sensors within minutes of activation. The contacts moved with purpose but not haste, maintaining depth profiles that suggested caution rather than reckless curiosity. Their positions formed a loose triangular formation that covered multiple approach angles to the decoy site. The response speed indicated either pre-positioned, assets or extremely efficient alert protocols. Captain Jackson recognized the pattern unfolding on her displays as a classic angle, something interesting and weight trap. The decoy's signature felt too perfectly calibrated, too obviously designed to attract attention. She noted how it pulsed with rhythmic precision that felt artificial, rather than genuinely distressed. Her tactical assessment highlighted the positioning near thermal vents that would mask ambush forces and limit sensor effectiveness. The pieces formed a familiar tactical picture she'd studied in naval warfare courses. She warned her crew to maintain defensive positions while appearing curious to outside observers. The Barracuda systems reconfigured to simulate investigative patterns while keeping weapons and defenses at ready status. External sensors mimicked standard scanning procedures, while internal systems ran full-spectrum analysis of the surrounding water. Jackson ordered minimal power emissions that would suggest cautious interest rather than combat readiness. They played their role while preparing for the trap's spring mechanism. The human vessels closed in on the decoy while remaining wary of potential ambush points. Their approach vectors showed systematic coverage of escape routes and likely attack positions. Each submarine maintained optimal firing solutions on the decoy while keeping other sensors focused on the surrounding darkness. They moved like professionals who expected deception at every turn, their caution evident in every course adjustment and depth change. The formation tightened gradually rather than rushing toward the lure. Their coordinated approach vectors suggested sophisticated tactical awareness beyond Vexian expectations. The submarines communicated through encrypted burst transmissions that defied interception, their movements displaying clear understanding of undersea combat principles. They used thermal layers and current patterns to mask their own positions while probing the decoy's defenses. Their behavior showed they understood this might be a trap and were proceeding accordingly. The Vexians expected easy targets taking the bait without suspicion. Their command interface displayed confidence metrics showing high probability of successful capture. They anticipated the human vessels would approach with scientific curiosity rather than combat readiness, focusing on the decoy rather than their surroundings. Their tactical projections showed clean capture scenarios with minimal resistance. Overconfidence blinded them to the disciplined professionalism unfolding on their sensors. Instead, they faced disciplined professionals who were expecting deception from the beginning. The human crews maintained combat readiness while playing the role of curious investigators. Their sensors actively searched for hidden ambush forces rather than focusing solely on the decoy. Weapon systems remained hot but concealed, targeting solutions prepared for multiple contingencies. They approached like veterans who'd seen this play before and knew all its variations. The trap was about to be sprung on the trappers themselves. Vexian forces waiting in ambush positions began realizing their concealment wasn't as perfect as they'd believed. Human sensors were actively pinging their positions using frequencies that penetrated their stealth systems. The hunters found themselves being systematically mapped and targeted by the supposed prey. The decoy that was meant to lure humans into vulnerability instead became the center of a counter-ambush they never saw coming. The alien ship unleashed unknown energy weapons without warning, a blinding surge of blue-white energy that struck the Barracuda's pressure hull. The impact created immediate and critical electrical fluctuations across all major systems. Main power dropped to emergency levels as consoles flickered and died throughout the command deck. The submarine shuddered under the force of the attack, its structural integrity compromised by energies it was never designed to withstand. They were caught completely unprepared for the intensity of the assault. A swarm of strange contacts closed in from multiple directions, moving with speeds that defied conventional propulsion physics. Sonar operators reported at least a dozen contacts approaching from all vectors, their signatures unlike anything in the recognition database. They moved through the water with unnatural precision, ignoring current patterns and thermal layers that should have affected their trajectories. The Barracuda found itself surrounded by enemies that understood three-dimensional underwater combat perfectly. Jackson ordered immediate evasive action and deployment of artificial decoys. Her voice remained steady as she called for hard port turns and rapid depth changes. Acoustic decoys launched into the surrounding water, creating false signatures designed to confuse targeting systems. The crew executed the maneuvers with practiced efficiency, despite the power fluctuations and system failures. They fought to create space and time against an enemy that had them. Completely outclassed technologically, her crew fought to keep the submarine alive under intense pressure. As damage reports flooded the command center, emergency lighting cast red shadows across tense faces as engineers struggled with failing systems. The starboard side reported complete power loss, while hull integrity monitors showed stress fractures spreading from the initial impact point. Damage control teams moved through narrow passages, fighting electrical fires and sealing breached compartments. They worked with the grim determination of professionals who knew their survival depended on every action. Krill's boarding team advanced with plasma torches toward the hull, cutting through the damaged sections with practiced efficiency. They expected minimal resistance from a supposedly primitive crew, anticipating terrified sailors who would surrender immediately. Their confidence stemmed from centuries of successful boarding actions against technologically inferior species. They moved through the breached hull sections with the casual assurance of veterans who'd done this countless times before. Instead, they faced disciplined point defense and corridor fighting the moment they entered the submarine. Human security teams waited in prepared positions, using the vessel's tight layout to their advantage. They employed projectile weapons that fired metal slugs with shocking effectiveness against the armored invaders. The confined spaces negated the Vexians' technological advantage, forcing them into close-quarters combat where human training excelled. The boarders found themselves fighting for every inch of passageway. The humans used non-lethal weapons with strategic precision, aiming to disable rather than kill the intruders. Their fired projectiles targeted joint armor and sensor arrays instead of center mass, showing clear intent to capture rather than eliminate. This tactical choice revealed their priority was intelligence gathering over simple survival. The boarding party found themselves facing opponents who valued information as much as victory, who fought with cold calculation rather than panic. The intruders found themselves forced back through tight spaces they had just penetrated. Human defenders used choke points and crossfire zones to maximum effect, herding the boarders toward predetermined containment areas. The Vexians' plasma weapons proved less effective in close quarters, their wide dispersal patterns risking collateral damage to their own forces. They retreated through smoking passageways, their confidence shattered by the disciplined resistance. The easy capture had become a desperate fighting withdrawal. Krill regrouped his team in the breached hull section, realizing they'd underestimated their opponents completely. The humans fought with coordination and tactics that suggested extensive anti-boarding training. Their use of the environment and non-lethal measures showed sophisticated combat doctrine beyond primitive species behavior. The boarding action that should have taken minutes now threatened to become a prolonged engagement with unpredictable outcomes. The hunters had become the trapped. The Vexians deployed neural gas through the breached hull sections, a pale green mist that flowed through passageways with unnatural speed. Their science officer Prell had assured complete effectiveness against human biology. Based on extensive study of captured biological data, he guaranteed immediate neurological shutdown and muscle paralysis. The gas represented their ultimate non-lethal solution, designed to neutralize crews without damaging valuable technology or intelligence. They expected the human defenders to collapse within seconds of exposure. The gas failed to produce the expected mass incapacitation. Instead of falling unconscious, human crew members coughed, shook their heads, and continued fighting. Some staggered against bulkheads but maintained their weapons ready. Others activated emergency breathing apparatus from compartments the boarders hadn't secured. The gas caused disorientation and nausea, but not the complete shutdown Prell had promised. His confidence in their technological superiority had overlooked human biological resilience. Human crew members fought through the effects with grim determination that surprised the invaders. They used hand signals when vocal communication became difficult, maintaining coordination despite neurological interference. Those affected worst by the gas focused on simple tasks like reloading weapons or operating door controls. Their training had emphasized continuing the fight through chemical attacks, and they executed that training with professional discipline. The gas became an inconvenience rather than a solution. Their training included extensive chemical and biological attack scenarios. Every crew member had experienced similar agents in simulation exercises, learning to function despite impaired coordination and cognition. The submarine's design included emergency air scrubbers and sealed compartments specifically for this contingency. Human naval doctrine assumed potential chemical warfare in confined spaces and prepared accordingly. The Vexians had attacked a crew that understood this threat intimately. The Vexian overconfidence became their greatest vulnerability. Their belief in technological supremacy blinded them to human adaptability and preparation. They assumed their advanced science would overwhelm primitive defenses, not considering that humans might have trained for exactly this scenario. This cultural arrogance prevented them from developing backup plans or alternative boarding strategies. Their entire operation hinged on the gas working as predicted. Boarders found themselves confined by the vessel's own layout as the gas dissipated unevenly. The submarine's compartmentalized design created pockets where the agent was less effective. Human defenders used these areas to regroup and counterattack. The invaders became separated by emergency bulkheads that sealed automatically during chemical alerts. Their numerical advantage vanished as they found themselves isolated in small groups throughout the vessel. Human defenders used environmental advantages with brutal efficiency. They vented compartments to space, flushed sections with emergency oxygen to disperse the gas, and used the submarine's fire suppression systems against the boarders. Every pipe, valve, and control panel became a potential weapon or defense mechanism. They knew their vessel intimately and used that knowledge to maximum effect. The environment that should have been unfamiliar and confining to the attackers became their prison. The intruders became trapped in killing zones they had created by breaching the hull. Their entry points became choke points that human defenders could cover with concentrated fire. The areas they had penetrated became boxes with limited escape routes. Human tactical teams systematically isolated each group of boarders, using the submarine's internal communications to coordinate without speaking. The hunters found themselves hunted within the metal maze they had invaded. Their technological superiority meant nothing in close quarters where training and environment dictated the fight. Advanced weapons required space to aim and fire effectively, space the narrow corridors didn't provide. Human defenders used shotguns and sidearms that worked perfectly in tight spaces. Their body armor protected against projectiles, but not against the hydraulic tools and mechanical traps the crew employed. The battle became primitive and personal, favoring those who knew the terrain. The neural gas deployment failed completely, leaving the boarders exposed and outmaneuvered. Human crews maintained combat effectiveness despite the chemical attack, their training proving more valuable than alien technology. The Vexians' greatest advantage had become their most embarrassing failure, demonstrating that superior science means little against superior preparation. Torres initiated the crucial sequence as boarding clamps locked onto the hull with metallic finality. Her fingers moved across the emergency console with practiced precision, bypassing damaged primary systems through secondary access ports. The protocol required 7 separate authentication steps, each designed to prevent accidental activation during normal operations. She worked with calm efficiency, despite the boarding actions raging through nearby corridors. She ordered all hands to fall back to secondary defensive positions through the internal comm system. Her voice remained level as she directed crew members to predetermined rally points away from main passageways. The command triggered automated bulkhead closures that sealed off engineering spaces from the ongoing fighting. Crew members disengaged from firefights and retreated along pre-planned routes, their training overriding the chaos around them. The hidden restart protocol began its cycle as the self-destruct threat became immediately apparent to both crews. Warning lights flashed amber rather than red, indicating system reset rather than imminent destruction. Power levels dropped to near zero across all monitors, creating the illusion of complete shutdown. The Vexian boarders interpreted this as surrender or systems failure, lowering their guard at the worst possible moment. The system reset the submarine's power, weapons, and hull integrity through a cascade of automated commands. Backup generators engaged with a deep hum that vibrated through the entire vessel. Weapon systems rebooted with fresh power allocations that bypassed damaged conduits. Hull integrity monitors showed emergency seals activating around breached sections, containing flooding and restoring pressure integrity. The submarine came back online like a predator shaking off tranquilizers. It represented a masterclass in adaptive human engineering under extreme pressure. The protocol wasn't designed by theorists, but by combat veterans who understood how ships actually failed in battle. Every system reset addressed specific failure modes observed in previous engagements. The engineering solutions prioritized combat effectiveness over perfect restoration, accepting minor system damage to regain major capabilities. It was brutal, practical, and devastatingly effective. The tide turned inside the Barracuda as systems came back online with sudden violence. Lights flickered to full brightness across all compartments. Weapon consoles activated with targeting solutions already locked on boarding party positions. Emergency systems sealed the last hull breaches with explosive bolt closures that trapped several Vexians between compartments. The submarine went from near capture to full combat readiness in under 60 seconds. Zorax, Krill, and Prell realized their plan was unraveling completely as their sensor feeds showed the dramatic reversal. Their internal monitors displayed the Barracuda's systems returning to active status with impossible speed. Boarding teams reported sudden resistance from automated defense systems they thought were disabled. The easy capture had become a fighting withdrawal against a reinvigorated opponent. Their confidence shattered against cold human engineering. Human countermeasures proved more sophisticated than their intelligence estimates could have predicted. The protocol didn't just restore systems, it reconfigured them for the specific threat environment. Weapons prioritized non-lethal takedowns of boarding parties rather than destruction of the alien vessel. Power management shifted to reinforce defensive systems rather than propulsion. Every adjustment showed deep understanding of both technology and tactics. The vessel came back from the brink of capture with decisive finality. Crew members who had been fighting retreating actions now pushed forward with renewed confidence. Their weapons found their marks as targeting systems came back online with updated enemy positions. The invaders found themselves outmaneuvered in corridors they thought they controlled. The metal beast they had tried to tame now turned on them with full fury. A countermeasure designed to salvage the ship proved devastating to the boarding operation. The protocol's primary function was preservation of human technology, but its secondary effect was complete tactical reversal. Vexian forces that had been advancing confidently now found themselves trapped between sealing bulkheads and advancing security teams. Their technological advantage evaporated against a system that understood how to negate it completely. The hunters became the hunted within the steel maze they had entered. Human sensors detected a swarm of autonomous underwater vehicles emerging from the continental shelf's shadow zones. These torpedo-shaped drones moved with coordinated purpose, their propulsion systems creating minimal acoustic disturbance. They appeared on displays as dozens of fast-moving contacts converging on the Vexian positions from multiple directions. Their approach patterns showed sophisticated swarm intelligence, rather than individual programming. These primitive but fast-moving threats closed on the alien vessels with alarming acceleration. Their designs showed obvious human engineering, simple metal hulls with basic propulsion and guidance systems. They carried explosive payloads that registered as conventional chemical explosives rather than energy weapons. The Vexian sensors classified them as minor threats based on their technological profile, underestimating their tactical application. Dozens of human vessels began closing in from multiple vectors simultaneously. The drone swarm coordinated with approaching submarines and surface ships, creating a three-dimensional trap around the alien fleet. Their movement patterns showed clear command and control despite the primitive nature of individual units. The coordination suggested centralized planning with decentralized execution, a tactical approach the Vexians hadn't anticipated. The proto-drones proved surprisingly effective against alien shielding through sheer numbers and persistence. They impacted the energy barriers in waves, each explosion weakening the defensive screens through cumulative effect. Their simple explosive charges caused disproportionate stress on the shield generators, overloading capacity through repeated localized impacts. The Vexian defense systems weren't designed for this type of saturation attack. They pushed Vexor shield status from 87% to precariously low readings within minutes. Defense officers reported sudden capacity drops as the swarm concentrated on specific shield sectors. The relentless impacts created harmonic resonances that destabilized the field projectors. Emergency systems attempted to redistribute power, but the coordinated nature of the attacks prevented effective countermeasures. The shields began failing sector by sector under the constant pressure. Human resourcefulness outthought technological superiority through simple, effective tactics. They used quantity over quality, overwhelming advanced systems with basic weapons employed intelligently. The drone designs prioritized numbers and reliability over sophistication, making them difficult to counter through electronic warfare. Their approach demonstrated deep understanding of how to negate technological advantages through asymmetric thinking. Local knowledge and rapid coordination created overwhelming pressure on the alien positions. The drones used underwater terrain for cover, emerging from canyons and thermal vents where sensors struggled to track them. Human commanders coordinated the attack using the environment itself as a weapon, directing the swarm through areas of acoustic confusion. Their familiarity with the battlefield gave them advantages no technology could overcome. The Barracuda's crew, emboldened by their successful defense, prepared offensive actions against the surrounded aliens. Weapon systems came online with fresh power allocations, targeting solutions locked on vulnerable shield points. Jackson ordered attack patterns that would maximize the drone swarm's effectiveness, timing their strikes to coincide with the swarm's impacts. The submarine shifted from prey to predator in the tactical equation. Surface forces mounted coordinated attacks from above, adding vertical pressure to the three-dimensional engagement. Warships launched additional drones and torpedoes that descended through the water column toward the alien fleet. Aircraft dropped sonar buoys and depth charges that disrupted Vexian sensor arrays. The combined assault from surface and depth created an inescapable tactical environment. The alien fleet found itself completely surrounded in three-dimensional space, with no avenue of escape remaining open. Every direction offered only more incoming threats: drones from below, torpedoes from the sides, surface weapons from above. Their technological advantage meant nothing against coordinated attacks from all angles. The hunters had become the prey in their own chosen hunting ground, trapped by opponents who understood the darkness better than they did. Dozens of human warships surged toward the battle zone from concealed positions along the continental shelves. They had waited for the precise signal from the Barracuda to proceed with overwhelming force. The timing was coordinated to the second, with surface vessels, submarines, and aircraft moving in concert despite the chaotic nature of the engagement. Their approach vectors showed pre-planned coordination rather than improvisation, suggesting this response had been drilled extensively. Air and sea power converged on the alien command ship simultaneously from multiple directions. Fighter aircraft launched from carrier decks streaked toward the coordinates, their missiles locked on the massive alien vessel. Surface ships fired coordinated volleys of advanced torpedoes that descended through the water column, like predatory birds. The attack came from above and below simultaneously, creating a three-dimensional engagement that strained Vexian defensive capabilities to their limits. The tactical shift proved immediately decisive against the invaders. Human commanders executed their plans with cold precision, each unit fulfilling its role in the larger battle pattern. The Vexians found themselves reacting rather than acting, their superior technology neutralized by perfect timing and coordination. Their command structure struggled to respond to threats from multiple domains at once, something their tactical doctrine hadn't prepared them to face. Human commanders coordinated the attacks with brutal efficiency that shocked the alien leadership. Communication channels remained clean and secure, despite Vexian attempts at electronic warfare. Each move complemented the others, with torpedo volleys timed to impact just as aircraft missiles struck from above. The coordination showed years of joint service training and integrated command structures that the Vexians had completely underestimated. The Vexians faced numbers and timing they couldn't overcome through technology alone. Their sensors showed dozens of vessels and aircraft converging with mathematical precision. Each human unit attacked its assigned sector without overlapping or leaving gaps in the coverage. The aliens' numerical disadvantage became apparent as they tried to defend against threats from all directions simultaneously. Their systems were designed for fleet engagements, not this kind of distributed assault. Their orbital engines couldn't reconfigure fast enough for escape under the constant pressure. The command ship's propulsion systems required minutes to spool up for emergency ascent, time the human forces didn't allow. Each attempt to generate power for escape was met with targeted strikes on engine nacelles and power conduits. The aliens found themselves trapped in the water they had chosen as their invasion route, their technological advantages rendered useless by superior tactics. Earth's defensive posture proved irrefutably superior in execution to the Vexian invasion plan. Human forces demonstrated depth of planning the aliens hadn't anticipated, with redundant systems and fallback positions prepared for every contingency. Their response showed understanding of multi-domain warfare that the Vexians clearly lacked. The invaders had expected to fight a naval battle but found themselves in a coordinated military engagement. The invasion plan collapsed under coordinated pressure from all directions. What began as a stealth insertion operation became a desperate fighting withdrawal against overwhelming force. The Vexians' carefully constructed timetable evaporated as they tried to respond to threats they never saw coming. Their assumption of human technological inferiority became their greatest liability. In the face of superior strategy and preparation, retreat became the only viable option for survival as the situation deteriorated rapidly. Command vessels began disengaging from the battle zone, abandoning their boarding operations and reconnaissance missions. The coordinated human assault left no room for maneuver or counterattack, only escape. The aliens who had come to conquer found themselves fighting simply to withdraw, with whatever forces they could salvage from the disaster. 3 Mark 48 torpedoes hammered the alien engines in rapid succession, their warheads detonating against the massive propulsion nacelles. The impacts created synchronized explosions that tore through the engine compartments with devastating effect. Internal sensors showed immediate catastrophic damage across all primary and secondary propulsion systems. The precision timing suggested coordinated firing solutions rather than random lucky hits. Factory engineering reports confirmed catastrophic engine damage across the command vessel. Power transfer conduits severed completely, leaving the main reactors isolated from thrust systems. Propeller shafts fractured under the explosive force, their intricate balance destroyed beyond emergency repair capacity. Cooling systems ruptured, flooding engine spaces with superheated plasma that triggered secondary explosions. The damage assessments showed no possibility of restoring propulsion before capture. The command ship lost propulsion and began listing severely to port as systems failed asymmetrically. Emergency ballast controls attempted to compensate, but found no working thrusters to maintain stability. The massive vessel started a slow, uncontrolled drift downward toward the sea floor, its descent rate increasing with each passing second. Internal gravity fields fluctuated wildly as power systems redistributed erratically. The listing created dangerous angles throughout the ship, making movement difficult and equipment operation hazardous. Structural integrity breaches multiplied throughout the vessel as the torpedo impacts triggered cascading failures. Hull plates buckled along stress points never designed for this kind of punishment. Bulkheads deformed under pressure differentials, creating new leak points throughout the interior. Emergency containment fields flickered and failed as power systems prioritized critical functions. The ship began coming apart internally long before external signs became apparent to observers. Zorax attempted emergency power redistribution with limited success as systems failed across his command console. His interface showed cascading failures that overwhelmed the automated repair protocols. Each attempt to reroute power created new problems as damaged conduits leaked energy into sensitive areas. The command ship's sophisticated systems were designed for graceful degradation, but the torpedo strikes caused simultaneous failures that exceeded all design parameters. His efforts delayed the inevitable rather than preventing it. The precision of the torpedo strikes revealed human targeting expertise that shocked the Vexian command. The Mark 48s had avoided the heavily armored sections and struck precisely where the propulsion systems were most vulnerable. Their guidance systems had identified and exploited weaknesses in the alien technology that the Vexians themselves hadn't fully understood. This wasn't brute force, it was surgical precision based on deep understanding of naval architecture principles. Their weapons proved perfectly adequate against advanced shielding, through intelligent application rather than raw power. The torpedoes had approached from angles that minimized their exposure to defensive systems, using the water itself as cover. Their detonation timing created harmonic resonances that disrupted shield projectors momentarily, just long enough for the warheads to reach their targets. Human engineers had understood how to defeat technology they'd never seen before through fundamental principles. The alien fleet's technological advantage evaporated under fire as their systems failed catastrophically. Advanced materials and energy weapons meant nothing without propulsion and power. Their command vessel drifted helplessly, while human forces maintained perfect operational capability. The technological gap that had seemed insurmountable became irrelevant in the face of practical combat effectiveness. Superior theory meant little against superior execution. Human weapons engineers had anticipated exactly this scenario during years of theoretical planning. Their torpedo designs incorporated flexibility to engage unknown technologies by targeting universal vulnerabilities. The Mark 48's guidance systems could analyze and adapt to unfamiliar ship designs, identifying propulsion and power systems through basic physics rather than specific intelligence. This preparation proved more valuable than any technological advantage. The invaders found themselves dead in the water completely, without propulsion, without escape options, without any meaningful resistance capability. Their command ship drifted downward, while human vessels maintained perfect firing solutions. Emergency systems provided just enough power for life support and basic operations, but nothing for defense or movement. They had become a stationary target in an environment where mobility meant survival. The hunters were now the captured. The alien command ship surfaced and transmitted surrender codes. The massive vessel broke the ocean's surface in a foaming eruption of displaced water. Its hull scarred from torpedo impacts and energy weapon strikes. White flag signals pulsed across every frequency simultaneously. Emergency channels, military bands, even civilian radio wavelengths. The transmission repeated in multiple languages and mathematical codes, leaving no doubt about their intentions. This wasn't a temporary ceasefire but complete capitulation. The bridge reported white flag posture across all frequencies with mechanical precision. Their signals included standard interstellar surrender protocols that human intelligence recognized immediately. The transmission contained vessel identification codes, crew complement numbers, and weapon status reports showing complete deactivation. Every signal followed galactic convention for unconditional surrender, suggesting they understood human military traditions better than their invasion plan indicated. Their compliance appeared total and professionally executed. This followed brutal exchange of missiles and hull breaches that left the command ship barely operational. Internal damage reports showed multiple compartments open to the sea, life support systems failing and primary power offline. The surrender came only after it became clear that continued resistance meant total destruction of the vessel and all hands. The aliens chose preservation of their crew over honor or mission success, a calculation that revealed unexpected pragmatism. Admiral Victor Martinez maintained lethal targeting while awaiting confirmation of the surrender terms. His command on the USS Nimitz showed no relaxation of combat readiness, despite the apparent capitulation. Weapon systems remained locked on the damaged alien vessel, with torpedo tubes loaded and ready for immediate firing. He understood that technological superiority could still mask deception, and his experience taught him to trust actions over signals. His steadiness ensured no trickery would compromise the hard-won victory. He ordered all ships to maintain positions and keep weapons active until boarding parties confirmed the surrender physically. This caution prevented any last-minute reversal by the aliens, who might have hoped to lure human forces into a false sense of security. His command demonstrated the discipline that had won the engagement in the first place. The captured vessel became both trophy and intelligence trove of incalculable value. Boarding teams found operational systems intact enough to study, including propulsion technology centuries ahead of human designs. Data cores contained complete records of Vexian military capabilities and strategic assessments of human defenses. The prize represented more than a victory. It was a technological leap forward wrapped in a battleship's hull. Human discipline prevented celebration until secure containment protocols were complete. Crew members maintained combat stations despite the obvious victory, their training overriding any desire for premature rejoicing. Security teams established perimeter control around the alien vessel before allowing any non-essential personnel near it. This professional restraint ensured that no accidental incident could reverse the outcome. The first direct oceanic confrontation ended in definitive checkmate against a technologically superior force. Human commanders had outthought and outfought an enemy that should have dominated them according to all conventional analysis. The victory established new doctrines for asymmetric warfare against advanced opponents and rewritten the book on undersea combat. Spacefaring invaders learned the price of underestimation through brutal practical experience. Their assumption of human technological inferiority cost them their flagship and exposed their entire strategic playbook. The lesson would be studied across their military academies for generations, becoming a cautionary tale about cultural arrogance in military planning. Their unstoppable invasion failed at the first real resistance, because they misunderstood the nature of human defense. They expected to fight navies and found themselves fighting an entire species' adaptive genius. Their technology meant nothing against opponents who could turn environment, psychology, and sheer determination into weapons. The galaxy would remember that Earth's oceans were protected by more than ships. They were defended by the most dangerous predators in the dark. In a secure Pentagon facility, Zorax began candid debriefing without the expected resistance. Xenolinguists found him quite talkative after capture, his cooperation facilitated by advanced translation systems that rendered his speech into flawless English. His willingness to share information stemmed from professional respect for his captor's effectiveness rather than defeatism. The debriefing sessions revealed a mind accustomed to military analysis, now applying those skills to understanding his own failure. He revealed broader interstellar history and empire expansion patterns that spanned centuries of Vexian military campaigns. Their strategy involved targeting worlds they considered technologically inferior, using psychological profiling to identify cultural weaknesses. Their expansion followed predictable patterns of testing defenses through reconnaissance before committing major forces. This approach had worked against 17 previous species, creating overconfidence that became their undoing against humanity. Translated intelligence confirmed their belief in human oceanside vulnerability as the cornerstone of their invasion plan. Their scans showed minimal human presence below certain depths and no organized patrol patterns in abyssal zones. They interpreted this as ignorance rather than strategic choice, failing to recognize that humans deliberately left those areas unpatrolled to create operational ambiguity. This misreading of human naval doctrine became the fatal flaw in their assessment. This strategic miscalculation cost them their entire advanced fleet and flagship through cascading errors. Their reconnaissance teams vanished because they used adapted space technology that emitted detectable signatures in water. Their boarding parties failed because they assumed chemical weapons would work against human biology without testing. Each assumption built upon the last, creating a house of cards that collapsed at first contact with reality. The price of arrogance was complete operational failure. The term the Silent Hunters emerged from translation sessions as Zorax's designation for human submarines. He used the phrase with professional respect, acknowledging their effectiveness in turning the ocean environment against invaders. The term reflected his new understanding that human naval forces operated with patience and precision he hadn't believed possible. This poetic nod recognized Earth's underwater guardians as worthy opponents rather than primitive obstacles. Human defense culture saw space as just another domain to master rather than an impossible frontier. Their approach to undersea warfare translated directly to void operations, with similar principles of stealth, patience, and environmental exploitation. This mindset meant they would treat orbital space with the same defensive seriousness they applied to territorial waters. The Vexian invasion accidentally revealed how humans would likely approach space defense. Their future expansion would have to reckon with human adaptability as a primary strategic factor. The debriefing showed that human forces could analyze and counter advanced technology faster than expected. Their weapons engineers could identify weaknesses in unfamiliar systems through fundamental principles rather than specific intelligence. This adaptive capability meant technological superiority alone would never guarantee victory against human defenders. The lesson would be studied across their military command structures as a classic case of cultural arrogance blinding strategic assessment. Their academies would analyze the engagement to understand how preconceptions about primitive species led to catastrophic miscalculation. The defeat would become a required study for all flag officers, ensuring they never repeated the errors of wet feet. The humiliation would shape Vexian military doctrine for generations. Zorax's debriefing provided unexpected insights into his own culture's weaknesses while revealing human strengths. His candid assessment showed professional military thinking that transcended species boundaries. The captured intelligence would prove more valuable than the technological spoils, giving human strategists deep understanding of how advanced civilizations might think about conquest. The defeated commander became an unwilling teacher whose lessons would protect Earth against future threats. The captured commander explained why they targeted oceans first during his debriefing sessions. His reasoning revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of human strategic priorities. They observed humanity's extensive surface navies and orbital activities, interpreting this as neglect of underwater domains. Their analysts concluded that humans focused on visible threats while ignoring what lay beneath the waves. This assessment formed the core rationale for their invasion strategy. They believed human surface dominance meant underwater weakness represented a logical extension of their observations. Their intelligence showed minimal human infrastructure below certain depths and no permanent bases in abyssal zones. They interpreted this absence as technological limitation rather than deliberate choice. This assumption guided their entire operational planning, from equipment design to deployment patterns. They never considered that humans might value operational secrecy over visible presence. This assumption proved fatally incorrect upon first contact with actual human naval forces. Their reconnaissance teams vanished because human sensors detected anomalies that shouldn't have been possible with primitive technology. Their boarding parties failed because they encountered crews trained beyond expected capabilities. Each engagement revealed deeper flaws in their initial assessment. The reality of human underwater operations contradicted every intelligence projection. Human submarines operated with efficiency they couldn't match despite technological disadvantages. The Barracuda's crew demonstrated reaction times and tactical flexibility that shocked the invaders. Their ability to adapt to unknown technology and develop countermeasures during combat exceeded Vexian capabilities. Human commanders displayed deeper understanding of undersea warfare principles than their supposedly advanced opponents. This operational effectiveness proved more valuable than any technological advantage. Their mastery of hunting in the dark became legendary among Vexian military circles after the defeat. The term silent hunters entered their tactical vocabulary with respectful connotations. Their academy simulations began incorporating human-like tactics into training scenarios. The efficiency with which human forces turned environment into weapon became a subject of professional study. This reputation would influence future engagements for generations. Earth's defenders turned their own environment against them completely through intelligent application of local knowledge. They used thermal layers as cover, ocean currents for maneuvering, and pressure zones as defensive barriers. Their weapons took advantage of water's properties to enhance effectiveness against advanced technology. They fought with the confidence of those who understood every variable of their battlefield. The aliens found themselves outmaneuvered in an environment they thought they controlled. The humiliation would affect future strategic planning profoundly within Vexian command structures. Their expansion doctrine would require complete revision to account for human adaptability. Risk assessment protocols would need higher thresholds for engaging species with demonstrated environmental mastery. The defeat became a case study in how cultural arrogance blinds tactical assessment. This lesson would shape their military thinking for centuries. No other species had defended its waters with such effectiveness in Vexian recorded history. Their archives contain no precedent for a technologically inferior force achieving such complete victory. The engagement would become a benchmark for asymmetric warfare studies across their military academies. Human defensive capabilities would be measured against this standard in all future assessments. The uniqueness of their defeat made it particularly valuable as a learning tool. Their reputation as silent hunters would precede them always in future interstellar interactions. Any species considering action against Earth would factor in the underwater defense capabilities demonstrated during wet feet. The psychological impact of this reputation would deter aggression more effectively than any visible weapon system. This legacy became an invisible shield around Earth's oceans, protecting them through remembered fear rather than active defense. Space would now be viewed through this defensive lens forever, by both humans and their potential adversaries. The principles demonstrated underwater would apply equally to void operations: stealth, patience, environmental exploitation. Human engineers would adapt submarine technology for space warfare, creating vessels that fought with similar philosophy. The galaxy would understand that darkness provided no protection from human defenders, whether in ocean depths or orbital space. The lesson extended beyond water into every domain humans might choose to defend. The Supreme Overlord recognized this as his most humiliating defeat, a stain on his command record that would never fade. His strategic console displayed the catastrophic loss metrics: an entire advance fleet neutralized, flagship captured, and complete intelligence compromise. The transmission ordering withdrawal carried the weight of personal failure. each word costing him political capital that had taken centuries to accumulate. His command staff watched in silence as he dictated the orders that would end their expansion into human space. The planned invasion was merely a test for a larger fleet waiting in reserve. This advance force represented only 12% of their total military capacity, sent to evaluate human defenses before committing major resources. Their mission involved establishing a beachhead and gathering tactical data for the main invasion force. The failure meant they had lost both their reconnaissance capability and the element of surprise simultaneously. The larger fleet now waited without purpose or direction, its strategic value negated by the advance team's destruction. Earth's successful resistance prompted immediate strategic reassessment across all Vexian command levels. Analysts scrambled to revise their threat assessment models that had so completely misjudged human capabilities. Military planners began recalculating force requirements for any future engagement, with projections showing needed increases of 300% or more. The easy victory they had anticipated now looked like potential catastrophe even with their full military strength deployed. All expansion plans toward human space were put on indefinite hold pending complete doctrine revision. The order affected 17 scheduled operations and 34 reconnaissance missions across neighboring sectors. Resources allocated for human system invasion were redirected to defensive posturing and intelligence analysis. This represented the first time in their recorded history that expansion plans had been canceled due to military assessment rather than political considerations. The pause would last for generations at minimum. The cost of underestimation proved too high for continued aggression against human territories. Their losses included technology that would take decades to replace and tactical information that compromised their entire military doctrine. The captured command ship alone represented an intelligence disaster that would require complete retooling of their naval architecture. Future engagements would demand resources they couldn't afford to risk without absolute certainty of success. Human resilience and adaptability became primary study topics within Vexian military academies. Their training simulations began incorporating human tactical patterns observed during the engagement. Cadets studied the Barracuda's defense protocols and the drone swarm tactics as examples of effective asymmetric warfare. The curriculum shifted from technological superiority to psychological flexibility and environmental mastery. This represented a fundamental change in how they trained their officers. Their ability to weaponize knowledge shocked the invasion planners who had expected technological dominance to guarantee victory. Human forces had analyzed and countered advanced systems within hours of first contact. Their engineers had adapted existing weapons to exploit vulnerabilities in technology they'd never seen before. This capacity for rapid innovation became the focus of intense study and concern within their strategic planning groups. The near invasion became a foundational myth of human prowess within Vexian culture. The story of Wet Feet joined their historical records as a cautionary tale about cultural arrogance. New military cadets learned about the engagement during their first year of training. The phrase silent hunters entered their language as a term for unpredictable but deadly opponents. This cultural impact would outlast any strategic consequences. Cosmic threats would now approach Earth with greater caution after analyzing the Vexian defeat. Other expansionist species studied the engagement records and revised their own assessment of human capabilities. The galaxy learned that humanity defended its territory with ruthless efficiency and strategic creativity. This reputation would deter aggression more effectively than any visible weapon system or fleet deployment. The lesson would be written across their military academies. In updated training manuals and strategic doctrine, new protocols required deeper intelligence gathering before any engagement with unknown species. Commanders faced stricter oversight when planning operations against potentially adaptable opponents. The defeat at human hands became the standard against which all future military risks would be measured. Their expansion would continue, but never again with such careless arrogance. Zorax's concession carried new weight after his complete defeat. His statement that space is just another ocean now seemed prophetic rather than arrogant. The captured commander had unknowingly predicted how humanity would approach cosmic defense. His words became a touchstone for strategic planners analyzing the engagement's broader implications. This perspective shift transformed how military thinkers viewed domain transitions. Earth's oceans were merely a prologue to space-based frontier defense. The tactical principles proved equally valid in both environments: stealth, patience, environmental mastery. Human commanders recognized that darkness and pressure existed in space, just as they did in abyssal trenches. The void offered similar opportunities for ambush and concealment that had served so well underwater. This conceptual breakthrough changed defense planning immediately. Humanity's resilience would extend beyond sea into cosmic domains with unsettling ease. Their capacity for rapid adaptation translated perfectly to the new environment. Engineers began sketching designs that applied submarine architecture to spacecraft. Tactical simulations incorporated three-dimensional maneuvering principles from undersea warfare. The mindset that protected oceans would now protect orbital space. Their warning that we are very good at hunting in the dark resonated across galactic diplomatic channels. This simple statement captured the essence of human defensive capabilities. It communicated that darkness provided no protection against their skills. The phrase entered interstellar strategic terminology as a marker for species with exceptional environmental adaptation. Its psychological impact outweighed any technological demonstration. The policy shift toward space defense began immediately after the victory. Military budgets redirected substantial resources to orbital defense initiatives. Shipyards received new specifications for vessels capable of both sea and space operations. Training programs expanded to include cross-domain tactical exercises. The transition happened with wartime urgency rather than bureaucratic delay. Human engineers started adapting submarine technology for space applications within weeks. Pressure hull designs informed spacecraft structural engineering. Stealth coating research expanded to include electromagnetic absorption. Life support systems shared common principles between deep sea and deep space environments. This technological cross-pollination accelerated development dramatically. The silent hunters would become the void stalkers in time, their skills transcending environment. Their patience and precision would apply equally to orbital patrols as to deep-sea missions. Their reputation would expand to cover both domains, creating psychological deterrence beyond physical capabilities. This evolutionary step represented natural progression rather than radical change. Their mastery of dark environments would define future conflicts regardless of setting. The ability to operate without visual reference, to track targets through indirect means, to use environment as weapon, these skills transferred perfectly. Human forces would enjoy inherent advantages in any low-visibility engagement. This environmental dominance became their strategic trademark. The invasion attempt accelerated human space military development by decades. Projects that had languished in research phases received immediate funding and priority. Joint Naval Space Command structures formed to coordinate domain transition. The captured alien technology provided insights that would have taken generations to discover independently. The attack ultimately strengthened human defenses beyond what anyone had imagined possible. Zorax watched these developments from his containment facility with professional appreciation. His defeat had sparked a military revolution that would reshape human expansion. His words about oceans and space now framed humanity's approach to the stars. The lesson he taught through failure would protect Earth more effectively than any victory could have. His miscalculation became humanity's strategic advantage. Jackson's closing message to Zorax was delivered in the same secure facility where he'd been debriefed. She stood before his containment field with the calm authority of someone who'd just rewritten interstellar power dynamics. Her words carried no hostility, only the weight of established fact. She spoke as one professional to another, but the message left no room for misinterpretation. The conversation lasted precisely 3 minutes, yet its implications would echo for centuries. She stated the oceans were just the beginning of human defense, the first layer of many. Her explanation revealed that humanity had always viewed environmental domains as continuous rather than separate. Their mastery of undersea warfare represented foundational principles that would apply equally to space, atmosphere, or any other environment they might encounter. This perspective shifted defensive planning from territorial to conceptual, from specific locations to universal principles. This reinforced the emerging policy where adaptability extended beyond Earth into cosmic domains. Military strategists were already drafting doctrines that applied submarine warfare principles to orbital defense. The same patience, the same stealth, the same environmental exploitation would protect human interests wherever they expanded. The mindset that secured oceans would now secure the void between stars. The warning made clear that darkness provides no protection from humans under any circumstances. Their capacity for operating in low-visibility environments translated perfectly across domains. Whether in abyssal trenches or deep space, human forces would always own the dark. This represented both promise and threat, protection for human territory, danger for those who threatened it. Their ability to turn invasion into intelligence victory shocked observers across the galactic community. The captured technology, the tactical data, the strategic insights, all became force multipliers that strengthened human positions. What the Vexians intended as conquest became the greatest intelligence windfall in human history. The invaders essentially handed their playbook to the very people they sought to conquer. The captured technology would accelerate human advancement by decades, if not centuries. Engineering teams were already reverse engineering propulsion systems, energy weapons and material science that would have taken generations to develop independently. Every captured device, every data core, every system schematic represented a leap forward in multiple technological fields. The invasion attempt became an involuntary technology transfer program. Future conflicts would find humanity better prepared and equipped because of this engagement. Defense planners now possessed actual combat data against advanced alien technology. They could test their theories against real performance metrics rather than simulations. The next encounter would feature human forces designed specifically to counter the weaknesses they'd identified in alien systems. The Vexian defeat became a cautionary tale for other would-be invaders across known space. Their failure demonstrated that technological superiority guaranteed nothing against adaptive opponents. Military academies would study this engagement as the definitive example of how arrogance blinds strategic assessment. The lesson would discourage aggression more effectively than any show of force. Human ingenuity proved the ultimate weapon against superior technology time and again. Their capacity for creative problem-solving outweighed raw computational power or energy output. They could identify and exploit vulnerabilities that their opponents didn't know they had. This mental flexibility became their greatest advantage in asymmetric engagements. The galaxy learned that Earth's defenders specialize in turning disadvantages into strengths. They used environment as weapon, patience as strategy, and adaptation as doctrine. Their reputation would now precede them as practitioners of warfare that valued intelligence over firepower, patience over aggression, and victory through understanding rather than destruction. The silent hunters had announced their presence to the cosmos, and the message was unmistakable. The Vexian invasion attempt failed because they misjudged human adaptability and environmental mastery. Their technological superiority proved meaningless against determined ingenuity. Earth's defenders used their oceans with intimate familiarity, turning the aliens' chosen battlefield against them. The silent hunters demonstrated that advanced systems mean little when facing opponents who understand darkness and pressure better than you do. This victory underscores that true power lies in strategic thinking, not just superior hardware. Remember that in the shadowed depths of any world, humanity remains the most dangerous predator you could encounter. Their home waters taught the galaxy a permanent lesson about human resilience.